Hi, Sandra Wilson here. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist who works with misophonia and extreme sound sensitivity. Now in today's video, I'm just going to be going through a few ways that you might be able to cope better with your misophonia triggers, even if they're very extreme. So if you have misophonia, you've probably tried many of these things maybe already. And it's important to remember that not everything will work for everyone. Misophonia is a complex condition and it's still not widely understood. There's still so many question marks hanging over whether or, where it originates, what causes it. So, as I say, many factors that may underlie it or exacerbate it. But you might consider the following to be helpful, and there are 5 ways that you could cope better with your misophonia. So number 1 is avoidance. So yes, you could try to avoid those people that make those sounds or limit exposure to the specific sounds that trigger your misophonia. This does work very well for people because, of course, if you can't hear the sound and you don't see that person, it kind of figures that you're not going to get triggered. Now, realistically, how practical is that for you? And if your triggers include the sound of people eating or breathing, especially if you live with them, then of course it's going to make life pretty difficult if you are trying to avoid them. And if you feel triggered mostly by being in noisy places, then of course it is slightly easier because you can avoid those. So avoidance often means restricting your life and not being with the people you love. Or you might just keep running away, moving house. I've had clients that have moved house multiple times to get away from noisy neighbours, or changing jobs, or just spending your whole life sitting apart from your loved ones, not being able to sleep with your partner or your spouse because of snoring or breathing. So number 2 is noise cancelling headphones, and it's very similar, of course, to avoidance. So you could use, there are multiple options available, the types of headphones or earbuds that will just block out or decrease the volume of those trigger sounds. And these have helped many sufferers. And there is, of course, the risk that you just end up feeling quite shut off from everyday life. So normal interactions, conversations with other people in your life, or just normal everyday sounds, that there can be pleasant sounds that you start to miss, like the sound of birdsong. Many people with misophonia feel lonely. The loneliness and the shame, the isolation is huge. But if headphones can help you to get some peace, if your triggers are only occasional or in certain settings rather than constant, then of course they may be an option worth considering. Although if you have misophonia, I am sure you're probably highly aware of this. And number 3 is distraction. You could try to distract yourself by focusing on something else, such as a book, listening to music, or a hobby. And this is a good technique, but it does take a little bit of practice because you are going to encounter resistance. Okay, so remember, at the heart of your misophonia, you have a very overactive, sensitive nervous system, and the key part of that is your amygdala, which is your internal security guard. It may be processing those sounds as being risky or threatening to you. So if you imagine the trigger sound as being the approach of some very hungry wild animal, how easy would it to be distracted from such a huge threat? And of course, even though you know it's not really a tiger, your flight or fight mechanism doesn't understand that you're not really in danger. So avoiding, distracting, blocking, it's all the same thing at the end of the day. This won't get to the root of your misophonia trigger, but it can give you some temporary relief. And it's definitely worth having a go. If you notice being triggered or situations that may trigger you, there are so many other things you could be focusing on instead. And number 4, exposure. Exposure to the noise gradually. And again, some people find this helpful. It's not a method that I use or advocate in my own therapy practice. Why would you want to expose yourself gradually to something that part of your brain thinks is going to kill you? I don't know. I think there are gentler, more compassionate ways of dealing with this problem. And number 5, acceptance. That is very hard for a lot of people. And of course, its root is from Buddhism. Buddhism has a principle that a lot of our misery is caused by resistance. So sometimes we just can't believe that something's happened to us, or we won't believe it. So ill health, the end of a relationship, the loss of a job, lots of things that happen that we're in shock and we simply cannot believe these things have happened. So in a very similar way, when you are resisting this misophonia, what happens in your nervous system is that anxiety starts to ramp up, because resistance creates anxiety. And of course, the more anxious you feel, the more you are going to notice the trigger feelings. So it's almost like going around in circles. Now, in my practice, I also work a lot with tinnitus, and I'm going to do another video about tinnitus because it's huge. This tactic has been helpful. Acceptance of something you cannot change can be transformative, but again, it is not for everyone. And number 6, relaxation techniques. Yes, you could practice deep breathing or meditation or yoga to help calm your body and calm your mind in response to trigger sounds. But you know, for those with anxiety as well as misophonia, and believe me, it is very common, the two can coexist very comfortably. Relaxation techniques can help your nervous system to feel calmer and more in control. But then again, you know, how relaxed can your nervous system be when it really believes that there is a saber-toothed tiger every time you get triggered? But it can happen. But the deeper, the more we get under the bonnet of this and really start to retrain your mind to start feeling more relaxed when it's triggered, the better. And that can sometimes be one of the main things that I can help you with. And number 7, therapy. Consider seeing a therapist, somebody that understands misophonia. They can help you develop coping strategies, coping skills, and work through some of your underlying emotions. And some people find CBT to be helpful, or counselling, or hypnotherapy. And there are millions of therapists out there, and a further million different types of therapy. The feeling can be very overwhelming, but when you are looking for somebody to help you specifically, it is really important that you find somebody who understands misophonia, who maybe specialises in it and has treated it before. A person who understands it is not necessarily the sound that's the problem or how loud it is, it's what the sound represents. That is, it is a risk to your safety, even though logically that makes no sense. That is the underlying subconscious driver, and it comes out in various ways. Run, hide, distract, hit out, feel frustration and anger, and then feel shame, especially when it dawns on you that the more you try to control the trigger, the more anxious and frustrated you'll get and the worse it feels. And finally, a final word is, remember that many people do cope and adapt, so do not lose heart. It really is a case of trial and error a lot of the time, and what you are prepared to sacrifice in other areas of your life in order to stay free from being triggered. And as ever, please subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube and you're finding it helpful, and feel free to let me know if you have any questions at all. Bye for now.